Hello everybody and welcome to chapter number 4, Markets and Government. And this chapter is actually a pretty big extension of our previous chapter where we talked about supply and demand and our market equilibrium. Here we're going to be a little bit concerned about how efficient our market is. So there is going to be a specific measure of how we can see how much welfare or efficiency there is in a particular market. And this is where we bring in a little bit of algebra and geometry. So first of all, we're going to build up this chapter like we do with any other chapter. Start off pretty simply and then start to build it up under the guise of our supply and demand model. So first of all, we talk about consumer surplus, producer surplus, give you a few examples of that. And then we're going to go ahead and take a look at what happens when markets get pushed out of equilibrium. So what happens to our welfare and efficiency when we have a surplus, when we have a shortage. So exactly what happens when we're not at our little happy place where supply and demand intersect with one another. So how does welfare and efficiency compare to when we are in equilibrium? Once we go ahead and do that, we go ahead and turn our attention to the governments just a little bit, take a look at a few market failures and see what are the few causes of market failures and exactly how the government themselves can intervene within markets and actually be a cause of market failure by taking a look at a few specific price controls, which are price ceilings and price floors. So we'll get a little bit into the specifics behind all of that. So the easiest way to introduce this idea of efficiency and welfare is to actually just go ahead and go straight into an example. So let's go ahead and build up this example. So as you guys listen to this, I want you guys to think of what your dream car is. So whatever your wildest dreams may envision. It could be a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, it could be a Phantom N1, it could be a Rolls Royce. Here my tastes are a little bit more conservative. So my dream car, we can go ahead and say it's going to be a Tesla. So Tesla Model X. So crazy Elon Musk with the Tesla Model X. So this is my dream car. So when you think about your dream car, you want to go ahead and think about what is your maximum willingness to pay for this particular car. So remember our idea of willingness to pay. It's the most that you would actually pay for this car. It's essentially what you value this particular car at. So for me, the most I would ever pay for a Tesla Model X, the most sort of extreme version or the most decked out version of this car, my willingness to pay would be roughly about $100,000. So willingness to pay for me would be roughly about $100K. So $100,000. So if Elon Musk went straight up to me and said, hey, I have a Tesla all ready for you to buy, and the price is $100,000, I would say, yes, that's a really good deal for me. It's exactly my highest willingness to pay, so therefore I would go ahead and buy this car. However, if the Tesla was selling, say, for $101,000, then I would say, hey, that's beyond my willingness to pay. I would not actually go ahead and buy that. So here, $100,000 is exactly my highest value on this particular car. But what exactly does this car sell for? So you can go ahead and go on Google, take a look at your dream car, search the MSRP, the manufacturer retail suggested price, and as you can see right here, the Tesla Model X sells roughly for about $85,000. So on the free market, if I actually wanted to go ahead and buy a Tesla, it would only cost me about $85,000. So we can go ahead and write that down. So here, the car sells for $85K, so $85,000. So when you take a look at these two numbers, will this transaction take place within the marketplace? So I have a highest willingness to buy of $100,000, but the car only sells for $85,000. So yeah, this transaction would go ahead and take place because there are actually gains to be made here. So this transaction will take place. Essentially because the market price is less than my maximum willingness to pay. So that's why there are going to be some type of gains to be made from this transaction. Gains to be made. I'm willing to pay up to $100,000, but it's seen as a form of saving for me because I only have to pay $85,000 for this car. So this difference between the willingness to pay and the price of the item that we take a look at, so willingness to pay minus the market price, is exactly our first form of efficiency or welfare in the marketplace. So here, using our specific numbers, we can say 100K, 100,000 minus this 85,000 will give us $15,000 worth of consumer surplus. So here we have consumer surplus. And this is going to be our first idea of efficiency or welfare in the marketplace. It hits on the demand or on the consumer side. So here, I'm willing to pay up to $100,000, but I only have to pay $85,000 in the marketplace. So I've essentially saved $15,000. And this $15,000 is consumer surplus. It's a form of efficiency or welfare on the buyer's side. So using the same idea, we can build up the second side of efficiency or welfare in the marketplace, which is going to be on the firms or the producer side. So I'll put this in blue right here. So here we also take a look at what the lowest price producers and firms are willing to sell their particular item at. So here we can go ahead and say that the Tesla manufacturer, we can say Elon Musk, he has his own willingness to sell. So WTS. This willingness to sell is the lowest price that a particular individual or firm would be willing to let their product sell for. So here, willingness to sell for firms. We can put it this way. And let's go ahead and say that Elon Musk, he's willing to let the car go at the low price of $75,000. So if someone actually offered him $75,000 for this car, he said, okay, I'd go ahead and sell it. But if someone offered him $74,999, he would say, no, that's not a good deal. The lowest price I'm willing to let it go for is $75K. And does he gain from this transaction? Remember, the car sells for $85,000 in the marketplace, but the lowest price he'd actually be willing to take is $75,000. So yeah, there are gains to be made for him on this case as well. He's willing to take $75,000, but he's actually getting $85,000 when the transaction takes place. So there are gains to be made as well. So we can also say, also gains to be made. Gains to be made. And exactly how much does he earn from this transaction? We just go ahead and take the difference between the price and the willingness to sell. Price minus willingness to sell. So here, this difference between the price, the car, what the good sells for, and the seller's minimum willingness to sell, that's where we get our second idea of efficiency and welfare in the marketplace. So here we take this $85,000 minus a $75,000, the minimum willingness to sell, and this will give us $10,000. And this is going to be called producer surplus. Producer surplus. And this is going to be the efficiency and welfare on the supply side. Here, it's called producer surplus. So a few things to note about these two ideas of efficiency and welfare. Number one, we are going to have efficiency and welfare on the demand side. We have it on the supply side. And we also do notice that these two numbers don't have to be equal or symmetric with one another. They're essentially just values of exactly how much consumers are saving and how much producers are earning when transactions take place within the market. And as we can see right here, we can just simply say that, hey, consumer surplus is just a little bit larger than producer surplus, just in terms of the values that we have right here. So with all of this, we have our two ideas of efficiency and welfare within the marketplace. As we said before, consumer surplus is just the difference between what consumers are willing to pay and the market price. It is a form of saving for consumers. And for producers, on the other hand, it's a difference between the market price and the price at which firms are willing to supply it. It's a form of earning for firms and producers on the supply side. So just go ahead and give you guys another example to complete this thought right here. So suppose that we once again are taking a look at the car market, but suppose that we're taking a look at a more conventional car, maybe a Toyota Camry or a Honda Civic. And you have a consumer side, we have a producer side, and the price that is negotiated with this transaction is $17,200. As a buyer, your maximum willingness to pay is $20,000. So this is the highest you would be ever willing to pay for this particular automobile. And the difference between your willingness to pay and the price that you actually paid, so this $20,000 minus $17,200, is exactly how much you are saving. You save $2,800. So this is your welfare. This is your efficiency on the demand side. On the producer side, they have an analogous type of methodology right here. They have a minimum willingness to sell. This is the lowest price they'd be willing to let the car go for, this $15,000. But remember, they sell the car for $17,200. So the difference right here, $17,200 minus $15,000 will give a producer surplus of $2,200. So here, once again, this is going to be the efficiency or welfare on the supply side. Once again, consumer surplus and producer surplus, they do not have to be equal to one another. It just gives us a specific value of how much efficiency and welfare are on each side of the market. So to wrap up this idea of consumer surplus and producer surplus, we Once again, reiterate a few of the things that we've already said. Consumer surplus is a form of saving because consumers are willing to pay more than the market price. We have a willingness to pay that is going to be higher for a vast majority of goods and services that we see in the marketplace. And producer surplus is a form of earning because businesses are willing to provide a good or service below the market price. So their willingness to sell is a lot lower than what the market price actually is. With this idea of consumer surplus and producer surplus, we're going to go ahead and apply this graphically to our supply and demand model and see what this looks like in illustration form. Also bring in the idea of algebra and geometry just a little bit more.